If you find yourself in a situation where you have the opportunity to move out of state, out of your hometown, and you're thinking about it, let me make it easier for you. Do it. I was born and raised in North Carolina, and I grew up thinking that I was never going to leave the state for no real reason. I was just convinced that I was going to live in North Carolina for my entire life. Maybe I would move out of my hometown to a surrounding city. Maybe I would move to a different part of the state. But I was hardcore convinced that North Carolina was where I was going to be till the end of my days. Now, fast forward to my adult life, I have moved 4 times since 2017. Most people probably won't be moving that many times in such a short time span, and that does have to do with my husband being in the military at the time. Still, moving was hands down the best decision I could have made for myself. As I've been scrolling social media, I've been seeing a lot of posts actually talking about how they have the opportunity to move, whether it's a job, whether it's for school, just because they want to. They have the opportunity to move to a whole new state, across the country, wherever. They all say the same thing of like they're excited, they think it's a great opportunity. I've noticed that they also all say that they're very nervous and scared, which are totally valid because I was definitely nervous about moving as well. But if you have the chance to move, especially to a new state, you need to take it. Before getting into the rest of the video, I do have a little side story. I don't know what to really call it. A little honesty hour time. This is my 4th time trying to film this video, and I couldn't figure out why I was struggling so much, because this is a topic that I'm very much passionate about. I believe everybody at some point should live outside of their hometown, outside of their state. I feel like everyone needs to experience that. You can always move back if you want to, but I feel like this is something everyone needs to experience. There is so much growth potential, and it's so good for you as just a person. And my last 3 takes were shit, frankly put. I sounded so scripted. I sounded so forced. Like, even just recording this right now, there's a huge difference in how I'm talking. I feel so natural right now. I was talking to Nico, and I was telling him how I was having so much difficulty. He knows that I think moving was the best thing for me. He knows how passionately I feel about this decision. And I was telling him, like, I feel so fake. Imposter syndrome is coming in hard, and I don't know why. He got honest with me. While I do believe everyone should move, I was trying to steer clear of my personal life. The real reason why I moved. I was trying to focus the video on more of the effects of moving rather than my personal cause. And my personal cause for moving ultimately comes down to I was trying to get away from home. I was trying to get away from my family, distance myself, and for me, moving to a new state was my escape, and it was my freedom. I feel like this makes my personal life sound so dramatic and so like crazy or something, and it's really not. It was just my personal circumstance where I needed to get away so that I could discover myself, essentially. I felt like in order to be able to continue with this video, I ended up having to be honest with myself, and I felt like I should be honest with you as well. So that's why I'm sharing that. I had to really look inside myself to kind of come to terms with it. It helped that Nico kind of sort of called me out in a way, because once he said it, once he put all of my feelings into words, I was then able to understand it. And he's right. And now he has a video recording of me saying he's right. Back to why you really came for this video. When you leave your hometown, you go to a brand new place. I know it sounds so cliche, but you are now a blank slate. Your life is a blank slate. You really need to have a certain mindset. You need to be open-minded. You need to be willing to accept whatever happens. I really don't like the first official move that I had because it was to a state that I absolutely despise. I'm not going to mention it. We're just not going to go there. My second move was to my first and only military base. That's when me and Nico finally were able to live together. Even though technically it was my second move, experience-wise, I kind of count it as my first move. I'm going to try so hard not to bring back the air quotes. If you know, you know. I'm going to try really hard. But I consider it my first move, experience-wise, because I didn't take full advantage during my first move. I feel like that just needs to be its own video because the first move, the first state, that whole experience, it's its own thing. But learning from the first move, I was not open-minded. I wasn't willing to even try and see any potential good side of where I was at. I was transitioning from being in college, being around all my friends all the time, being around people all the time, to essentially the real world. I didn't know how to handle moving because I went to school 15 minutes from my house in my hometown. So while other people experience moving for the first time is going to college in a different state or a different city, I didn't have that until after college. So moving on from my first move in the state that shall not be named, at least not in this video. When I moved to Texas, I was at a base in Texas. That's when I really embraced the concept of this is a fresh start. I'm a blank slate. I can be and I am whatever I envision myself to be. I feel like we all hear this. This is where the whole concept of picture the kind of person you want to be, what kind of habits they have, how they dress, how they speak. You know, when people say that, this is where that concept really comes into play. Because now is truly your opportunity to step into that role and essentially reinvent yourself to be the person you want to be. My ring light is so freaking bright. It's hurting my eyes. I'm also filming on my phone, so like trying to focus on my camera, on my phone camera is really hard because my phone is stupid. It has a pop out front camera and the little camera is like right next to the light, and I've had LASIK, which is honestly very similar to having astigmatism, which I also have because all the lights are like, whoo, it's like halos everywhere. Tangent, sorry. So in my previous video of how I started my self-improvement journey, I don't mention in that video how moving was actually an important part of getting to my low point, having to face myself, doing self-reflection, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, moving was an important part of it because when I finally got to Texas and I had decided I was going, I was going to be more outgoing. I was going to go talk to people first to make friends. I was in a community where I had people closer to my age. I was in a military neighborhood, so everyone around me, we all already had the military in common. I was like, I'm going to take advantage of this and I'm going to create the life that I want. I want more friends. I want to be involved in the community, all these things. But I was having to essentially face the consequences of my previous mindset. Thus, me hitting my lowest point, looking at myself in the mirror, deciding if I want to make a change or continue on the way I am. The point I'm trying to get to is you have this opportunity of reflecting. You now get to reflect on what do you want to be known for? What kind of person do you want to be? What values are going to be important to you? What kind of people do you want to have around you? What kind of company do you want to keep? What kind of friends do you want to make? For me, those are the things that I really started thinking about when I started making changes in my life. But I think those are things you can think about in general when you move. If you're in the right mindset, if you really try to take advantage of the situation of this is a chance to reinvent yourself. Reinventing oneself, I feel like, is very tied to new year, new me. We're not going to get into that. I am not a fan of that phrase. We're not going to get into that right now. But if you are ever really trying to change, moving is the way to go. And I say that because I feel like most people would agree with me when I say it's going to be hard to make changes to yourself when you are in an environment that you have grown up in an environment where people already know you, because those people that know you are going to already have an expectation of you. They're going to have this expectation of how you've always been around them. When you decide, I don't want to be like this anymore, or I want to pick up these new habits, or I want to do this, I want to do that. If you have the right people around you, it won't be as difficult because they'll be supportive of you trying to make these changes. Most of the time, though, I feel like it's safe to say you're going to have people who are going to call you out for being, here, those air quotes, for being fake. They're going to call you out for saying, oh, you're different. Oh, do you think you're better than us now because you're trying to do this? Like, they're going to try and bring you down. In regards to that, you just got to remember it has more to do with themselves rather than you. I'm going to stray a little bit, but they're going to be projecting onto you because as a person in their life, if they see you trying to make changes, trying to better yourself, and if they're not in the same mindset to do so, they're going to see it as a threat. You're threatening their comfort. You are threatening their livelihood, because if they don't have anyone in their life who is trying to improve themselves, they have the excuse and the validation of like, well, I don't have to do it. If no one else is doing it, why should I? So you're going to come across a lot of people who are probably either going to be fake towards you and give you false support, or they're going to openly disapprove, say you're fake, say you're changing, all these negative things to bring you down until you cave and assume the expectations that they have of you. When you are in a new location, nobody knows you. Nobody can say otherwise to how you act. I'm really bad with examples, but let's say you were the quiet kid back home. You were shy growing up in school. The kids called you the quiet one, the quiet kid. You go to a new location, no one knows that you are quiet. So this is your opportunity to be more outgoing, to be more confident, speak to people first, approach people first, and no one will know otherwise. Their first impression of you will be, this is a confident person. And therefore in their mind, you will now be the confident person instead of the quiet kid. I know I suck at examples, but I really hope you understand the point I'm trying to make. Along with the ability to really think about what kind of person you want to be and then actually becoming that person. I think moving is also important because you can believe something about yourself until you experience a situation that really puts it to the test. How do you know that's a quality you have, a trait you have? I'm not gonna lie, I don't really have an example for this, just the concept. But if you don't experience a situation, how do you know? When you grow up in a location, your entire life, the way you think and act is going to be heavily influenced by your environment, by your community. And I know you're going to say, duh. Give me a chance to explain. You're going to think a certain way, you're going to act a certain way, and that's going to be considered the norm for your community, your location, your town. When you move, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but the way your community might think about something or line of thinking is not necessarily going to be the same as a different location, different state, different town. And by no fault of your own, I feel like most people don't realize this, because unless you get the exposure, how are you supposed to know? So when you move to a new area, you're going to be exposed to what the norm is for that community. And it may be similar, it may be completely different from what you're used to. You are going to be exposed to all these new kinds of thinking. You're going to be exposed to people from different backgrounds. You're going to be exposed to people with different experiences. You may agree with some, you may disagree. But the important thing about that exposure is not the exposure itself. It's not about do you agree or disagree with the way of thinking or behavior. It's about being exposed to it and learning how to interact with those kinds of people. People who think differently than you. People who would react differently to a situation than you. People who maybe agree with you on some parts but disagree on a different part. Like, it's learning how to interact with them. That's the important lesson to learn. I'll be the first to say it. I grew up sheltered. When I moved to the military base, oh my God, it was a freaking culture shock. I could not believe. I felt like my life was a TV show. The stuff I was hearing about, the stuff I was seeing, I was like, oh my God, this could be like a TV show. Now, we're not going to go into the whole military stereotypes, although yes, a lot of it did feed the stereotypes. I feel like this is still applicable for even civilian life. Actually, it is, because I'm now in a civilian town. And oh my God, I still feel like I'm in a TV show sometimes. But when I moved, I do feel like I was somewhat at an advantage in terms of experiencing different kinds of people, because the military, of course, brings in people from all kinds of backgrounds, all walks of life. So I do feel like I was at a type of advantage in terms of experiencing that. Every time I experienced something new, I will say there was a sort of internal shock, because for me it was like, people think like that? Why would you think that? Or, oh, I didn't know people thought that. Or I didn't know that was a thing. As I got exposed to more people, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, I didn't think of it that way. Or, oh, that's cool. It wasn't so, there was no wow factor to it anymore. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's how this person is. As I met more and more people, while I learned who my people are and who my people aren't, I also learned how to coexist with essentially everyone. If you have to interact with people, whether you like them or not, you gotta learn how to coexist. And I feel like that is such an important skill to learn that'll take you far in whatever career you choose, that'll take you far socially in social circles. That's just an important skill to have. And I feel like everyone needs to learn it. The last thing I want to mention about moving, it's kind of a duh again. You get to experience new foods. You get to experience new events that your area holds. You get to experience new environments. Like maybe you're from a very mountainous state, yet you can move to the beach. Vice versa. Again, sorry, I suck at examples. If you're open-minded and you treat it like it's an adventure, you will have an adventure. In Texas, I really decided I was going to give everything a chance. Now, I know you guys don't know, but when I moved to Texas, I told all my friends back home, I went outside. I told all my friends, I went on a hike. People were shocked because up until that point, I didn't do outdoors. I had allergies. I didn't like bugs. I didn't like sweating. But coming from North Carolina, I feel like my reasons were valid. In North Carolina, it gets gross as hell come summer, okay? It feels like you're walking in water when you step outside. When you go into the shade, there's no difference in temperature or humidity. In Texas, it got hot, but it was dry. I didn't have allergies. Well, I did. I ended up having cedar fever in the winter. But the rest of the year, my allergies were very mild to none. So I wasn't sweating excessively from just stepping outside. I wasn't sneezing and watery eyes and being all gross feeling from allergies. I was actually able to now enjoy the outdoors. I went on walks every day. And again, unless you know me personally, you don't realize how shocking that is. I did a 6-mile hike. I was so proud of myself for that one. That one did nearly kill me, but I was very proud of myself. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed spending time outside. I never would have known that I could enjoy something like hiking or just a casual walk if I hadn't been in that kind of environment. Because all I knew from back home was sticky, humid, hot mosquitoes, and I didn't have those issues when I was in Texas. I got to experience so many new foods, not even necessarily new foods, but more authentic food. I got to experience what I consider the best grocery store ever, H-E-B. If you really want it to be, everything can be an experience. H-E-B was amazing to me. And maybe that's just me being old now, but like I loved grocery shopping and I loved going to H-E-B. That was literally a activity I did with my best friend when she came to visit. She was like, take me to H-E-B. I want to experience this. Maybe we're just weird. If you move, your experience is going to be what you make of it. If you choose to step out of your comfort zone, embrace the change, and trust me, I know a lot of people hate change. I hate change. I tolerate it better now, but I still hate change. But if you are open-minded about it and embrace it, you will probably find that within a year, you will probably realize that there have been changes in you that maybe you weren't even trying to make. It just happened naturally as you grew. As long as you're open-minded, you're going to find that you're different. Hopefully in a good way. Don't make bad friends and pick up bad habits. You're probably going to surprise yourself when you realize some of the changes in you. I realized I was capable. And I say that in the sense that growing up, my parents did a lot of things for me. And it wasn't because I was incapable. It was just because they wanted me to be able to focus on school, not have any distractions. So they did a lot of stuff for me, responsibility-wise, so that I wouldn't have to worry about it. And I always felt like I was kind of behind my peers. There would be responsibilities that they had that I didn't. And when I finally got to live on my own with Nico, I realized, oh, it's not scary. I know if I'm confused about something or don't know something, I know how to find out that information and it's not hard. I realized being an adult wasn't so bad, except for the bills. The bills suck and they still suck. But I realized I can do this. It grew my confidence in myself and tied in with my whole self-improvement journey starting, because that was all within the first year of actually being in Texas. There was a huge difference in myself by the end of my first year. For me personally, I was at a point in my life where I needed a push in terms of finding myself. Moving gave me that opportunity. You may not feel as strongly of a desire to leave like I did, but if you have the opportunity, I highly encourage you take it. Because as long as you're ready to embrace the change, you're going to come out a whole new person.